There's a rule regarding radicals that basically says that you could put an exponent inside or outside the radical and you'd end up getting the same thing as long as the index and the radicand are the same. The index and the radicand are the same in both cases. So it is possible to move this outside the radical and it will give you the same answer. But another way you could write these same two radicals is with exponents. And specifically, we call these rational exponents because there's a ratio involved. And what that ratio is it's always the radicand becomes the base of your exponent, and then the exponent, whether it's inside or outside the radical, becomes the numerator, and the index becomes the denominator. So this is called a rational exponent because it's a ratio and it's a rational number, and we're putting it as an exponent on the base A. Now you should be able to go back and forth between the two forms. So this one is a radical that also has an exponent in it, and so that would equal x to the 4 goes on top and 3 goes on the bottom. Try to remember that the index is always in the denominator. Even if we had something like just square root of x, notice the understood missing numbers that we could fill in there. X, since it doesn't have a power on it, is considered to be to the first power, and the radical, since it doesn't have an index, is assumed to be a square root, which would be an index of 2. Therefore, you'd have x to the 1 over 2, or 1/2 exponent. Then on this next one, we have two things under the radical, and that's fine. We can just split them up and put them as two different pieces. So we'll do x, exponent on top, index on bottom, and then y, exponent on top, index on bottom. And then you could take that one step further because we usually would never leave something with 2 over 4. So we can go x to the 1/2 and y to the 3/4. That would be writing that radical using rational exponents. The last example, we want to go the other direction. We want to start with a rational exponent and write it as a radical. And so in this case, just be careful. Remember, the rule was that the denominator is always the index. If you can just remember that part, the other part will take care of itself. So then we write b to the 2nd. Now we can leave it like that, or you could technically write it the other way, where you put parentheses around the whole thing and put a squared on the outside and put a b in here. Sometimes that notation is useful. I would probably just leave it like this because it's got less notation on it.